The waitress was called Just a Girl. The Mafia boss stood and said, "That girl saved me once." The rain in Brindleport does not just fall, it attacks. It hits the pavement with the force of thrown gravel, a relentless drumming that has been the soundtrack to my life for 3 straight days, inside Rook's diner. The sound is muffled to a dull roar, competing with the sizzle of the flat top and the low hum of the few customers nursing coffee at 3 in the morning. The neon sign outside, the one with the crow holding a coffee cup, flickers. Rook's diner, pink, then black, then pink again. It casts a sick, pulsing light over the wet street and stains the puddles on the linoleum floor where the door seal has given up. My tray feels heavier than it should. My apron, which was clean 5 hours ago, smells of burnt toast and stale beer. "Just top it off, sweetheart, and some more fries." A man in a soaked business suit, his tie loosened and stained with ketchup, slurs the words at my chest. He waves his empty glass, splashing stale liquor onto my arm. "Come on, hurry it up. You're just a girl. After all, what else are you good for?" I do not flinch. I do not meet his eyes. I learned a long time ago that meeting their eyes is an invitation. Instead, I focus on the sticky ring his glass left on the Formica table. "More fries," I repeat, my voice flat, dead. I scrape the glass onto my tray, the weight of his words settling on my shoulders next to the dirty plates. Just a girl. It is the anthem of my life. Just a girl trying to make rent. Just a girl slinging hash. Just a girl who is too tired to feel the insult anymore. I turn, my sneakers squeaking on the tile, and head for the kitchen window. That is when the bell above the door jangles, sharp and violent against the diner's low hum. It is not a customer, not one of our usuals, anyway. The usuals, the cabbies, the third shift nurses, the lonely insomniacs they slide in, these two loom. They wear heavy black coats, the kind that fail to hide the bulk underneath. Rain sluices off their shoulders. On the breast of each coat is an embroidered logo, a stylized eagle gripping a set of scales. The Urban Trade Enforcement Office, UTO, a name that sounds bureaucratic and dull, but which every small business owner in Brindleport has learned to fear. The diner goes quiet. The sizzle from the grill seems to taper off as Mr. Rook, the owner, stills his spatula. The taller one, with a face like a bulldog, nods at Rook. "Evening?" He does not wait for a reply. He strides straight behind the counter, his wet boots leaving dark, menacing prints. The shorter one, wiry and nervous, blocks the doorway to the kitchen. "Routine inspection, Moa," and the bulldog says, his voice too loud for the small space. He pulls a clipboard from under his coat. "We have had reports, sanitation violations." "My book is clean, mister," Rook says. His voice is gravel, a remnant of his 20 years in the Merchant Marines. He's a good man. He's also terrified. I can see it in the way his knuckles have gone white on the steel spatula. "We will be the judge of that." The UTEO agent begins opening drawers, his ungloved hands rummaging through our stacks of clean napkins, our bundles of silverware. Filth. This is how disease spreads. From the corner booth, the one deepest in the shadows, comes a soft, amused chuckle. I had forgotten he was there. Damien Quell. He sits alone, pristine in a bespoke suit, looking completely out of place in a greasy spoon at 3 in the morning. He's Brindleport's golden boy, the philanthropist behind the Heliotrope Trust, the man always in the papers for funding a new park or a children's wing at the hospital. He is also, I know, the man who owns the company that is trying to buy this entire city block. The UTO agent's arrival seems to have brightened his evening. He has his phone out, the screen glowing. He's not calling anyone. He's filming. My hand holding the tray begins to tremble. It is not from fear, not really. It is from rage, the sheer exhausting unfairness of it all, the businessman's insult, the UTO thugs, and now this rich parasite enjoying the show. A coffee mug on my tray, forgotten from another table, rattles against a plate. "Oh, dear," Quell says, his voice carrying across the silent room. "Looks like the staff is nervous. Hard to hold a tray steady when you are worried about health codes, is it not, darling? He zooms in. I can see his thumb move on the screen. He is filming me, my shaking hand. The tremor worsens. The coffee mug slides. It tips, clattering against the tray's metal rim, and a splash of cold, brown liquid leaps out, spattering the floor and the side of my apron. Quell laughs, a genuine, delighted laugh. Perfect, absolutely perfect. My face burns. I feel trapped, a bug under his expensive, polished shoe. I want to throw the entire tray at his smiling, manicured face. The bell jangles again. This time, the silence that follows is different. It is not the tense quiet of a shakedown. It is the heavy, absolute silence of a vacuum. 3 men enter. The 2 on the flanks are large, dressed in dark suits that fit them perfectly. They move with an athletic grace, their eyes scanning the room, one taking the left, one the right. They are the frame. The man in the center is the picture. He's not as tall as his men, but he takes up all the air in the room. He wears a simple dark wool overcoat, soaked through from the storm. No tie. The collar of his white shirt is open, showing the strong line of his throat. His black hair is slicked back with rain. His face is all angles. Sharp jaw, straight nose, a shadow of stubble. His eyes are the darkest I have ever seen, and they are fixed, not on the UTO agents, but on Damien Quell. The other staff, Maria and Sal, freeze. I hear Sal whisper one word from the kitchen window. Benetti. Marcello Benetti, the Benetti Syndicate. The papers call them businessmen. The whispers in the alleys call them the real power in Brindleport. He is a ghost, a name, a man rumored to control the docks, the unions, and half the city council, but he is never seen, not in places like this. Mister, Rook steps out from behind the grill. He wipes his hands on his apron and makes a small, sharp gesture to me with his chin. Go. Back room. Now. My feet are lead. I cannot move. My throat feels like it is full of sand. I am tired of being just a girl. I am tired of running to the back room. I lift my chin, my tray still in my hand, and I stand my ground. Marcello Benetti's eyes slide from Quell to the UDO agent still behind our counter, and then, finally, to me. His expression does not change. It is an unreadable mask of calm. The UTO bulldog, full of his own small power, seems to be the only one unimpressed. He slams a drawer shut. This diner is a pigsty. We are shutting you down. He turns, finally noticing me standing there. He shoves a table out of his way. It screeches on the tile and collides with my hip. I stumble, and the tray clatters, but I do not drop it. And you, the agent snarls, jabbing a finger at me. You look twitchy. What are you hiding in that apron? Let me see your bag, you waitresses. You are all the same, moving things for your bosses. He calls me the girl. The diner has stopped breathing. Quell has stopped filming, his smile frozen, watching. A chair scrapes against the tile floor, the sound ripping through the silence. Marcello Benetti stands up. He steps away from his men, walking slowly into the center of the diner, stopping on the patch of wet tile where the rain has pooled. The flickering neon paints his face pink, then dark. He speaks. His voice is not loud, but it cuts through everything. It is low, smooth, and carries the weight of authority the UDO agent could only dream of. The waitress was called just a girl. His eyes find mine. He's not looking at me. He's looking into me. But that girl saved me once. The entire room shifts. The UTO agent freezes. His hand halfway to my apron, Damien Quell's smirk vanishes, replaced by a flicker of genuine confusion. Even the drunk businessman in the booth has sobered up, his eyes wide. Quell scoffs, trying to regain control. What is this? Benetti. Some kind of joke she is a nobody. Marcello ignores him. He reaches into his overcoat pocket. He pulls out a simple white handkerchief, neatly folded. He steps forward, his expensive shoes silent on the long water, and places it on the counter. It is damp, darkened by the rain it has absorbed. It is a symbol I do not understand, but the bulldog does. His face goes pale, a grayish, sickly white. He takes a half step back, stumbling over the chair he himself had kicked. "Mr. Benetti," the agent stammers, "we were just conducting a standard." Marcello does not look at him. He turns to Mr. Rook. "A bill. For the entire diner, for the night." Mr. Rook, his eyes darting from the handkerchief to Marcello, just nods. Marcello's man, the one named Sable, steps forward and places a black, featureless credit card on the counter and add a 20% tip for all staff, mandatory. The UTO agents are backing away, crab-walking toward the door, their authority dissolving like sugar in the rain. "Rook's is a safe zone now," Marcello says, his voice quiet again, but final. He turns, his coat swirling, and walks out. His two men follow, the door closing with a soft, final click. The bulldog and his partner are gone a second later, scrambling into the storm without another word. Damien Quell slowly lowers his phone. His face is a mask of cold fury. He stands, adjusts his cuffs, and throws a $100 bill on the table. He walks out, shoving the door so hard the bell screams. The diner is silent, save for the rain. I am still holding the tray. My hand is perfectly steady now. I look at the white handkerchief on the counter. It is just a piece of cloth, but it was a shield. It was a weapon. "Mr. Rook lets out a breath that sounds like it has been held for a week. I put the tray down, my mind racing, trying to catch up. I have never seen that man before in my life. I would remember a face like that. I would remember eyes like those. When could I have possibly saved him? I look at the handkerchief, and then, tapping at the back of my mind, a memory starts to knock. A memory I thought I had buried, a night 2 years ago. The sound of gunfire in the alley behind the last diner I worked at. A man bleeding out by the dumpsters. A dark red stain on a piece of cloth. My cloth, my old apron string, used as a tourniquet. I look at the handkerchief on the counter, the same dark, muted color of an old stain. I had never seen his face that night. I had just focused on the wound. I had never known his name. I just saved a man, and now that man has returned, and I have a terrifying feeling he did not just pay for our coffee. He just bought the whole damn diner, and maybe me with it. The diner was quiet after they left. It was the heavy, pressurized silence that follows a sudden explosion, where everyone is still breathing in the dust, checking to see if they are intact. Mr. Rook let out a long, slow breath and leaned against the cold flat top. Sal, the line cook, emerged from the kitchen, wiping his hands on an apron that was suddenly too white. He just bought the diner, Maria whispered, staring at the black card on the counter. He bought the night, Maria. Mr. Rook corrected, his voice strained. He pushed himself upright. And he bought us trouble. I did not move. My feet were cemented to the linoleum. I was staring at the white handkerchief. It was damp, not just from the rain, but from his pocket. It was made of heavy linen, and in one corner, almost invisible, I could see a dark monogram. B. My mind, sluggish and thick with exhaustion, finally made the connection. It was not the handkerchief itself I recognized. It was the stain. The memory did not just knock. It kicked the door down. It was 2 years ago, a different diner, a different part of Brindleport, the one on the wharf that burned down 6 months after I quit. It was a humid August night, the air so thick you could drink it. I was taking the garbage out after closing. The alley smelled of rotting fish and ozone. I heard a car skid, then 2 sharp pops that were definitely not fireworks. I froze, my hand on the dumpster lid, a shape slumped against the brick wall, a man's silhouette, sliding down into the pile of empty vegetable crates. I should have run. I should have locked the door and called the police. I did neither. I crept forward. He was alive. I could hear the wet, ragged sound of his breathing. He was clutching his leg, high on the thigh, and the pavement beneath him was slick and dark. My training a single, mandatory first aid course I took in high school kicked in. I grabbed his arm. "You have to get up. You cannot stay here." He was heavy, a dead weight, but fueled by a terror I had not known I possessed. I dragged him. I hauled him through the back kitchen door, the metal scraping on the concrete, and he collapsed onto the cool floor, leaving a smear of red across the tile I had just mopped. He was bleeding too fast. The blood was pulsing, dark and arterial. "Hold this," I commanded, grabbing his own hand and shoving it against the wound. He did not respond. His eyes were closed, his face pale and slick with sweat. I tore off my apron. It was a cheap cotton blend. I ripped at the waist tie, the fabric tearing with a sound like a scream. I wrapped the cloth strip high and tight around his thigh, just below the groin. It was not enough. I grabbed a heavy wooden spoon from the prep counter. I jammed it under the apron string and twisted. I twisted until the fabric bit deep into his leg, until I heard him groan, a low, animal sound. The bleeding slowed. It stopped pulsing. I did not know his face. I had kept my eyes on the wound, on my hands, on the floor. I used his own handkerchief, the one that had fallen from his suit pocket, to wipe the sweat and grime from his face. It was dark in the kitchen. Just the single yellow safety light above the sink. I never saw his features. I called a cab, not a registered one, a ghost car, a number the line cooks kept for emergencies. I paid the driver $200, all the cash I had in the world, to take this man to the hospital. No names. Drop him at the emergency bay and leave. They loaded him in. I never saw him again. All that was left was the handkerchief. His handkerchief. I had kept it, tucked in the back of my sock drawer. It was stained with a mix of his blood and my fear. It had the same dark monogram. Marcello Benetti. He had not recognized my face. He had recognized my actions. He had recognized the girl who did not run. The next day, the squeeze began. I walked home from my shift. The rain finally reduced to a miserable, cold drizzle. Taped to the thin metal door of my apartment was an envelope. It was thick, cream-colored, and bore the official, embossed seal of the Urban Trade Enforcement Office. It was not a letter. It was a fine, $500. Violation of residential occupancy and safety codes. It listed infractions that were pure fantasy, improper ventilation, non-standard wiring. It was more than a week's pay. There was another envelope, this one shoved under the door. It was from my building's management company, a faceless entity called Brindleport Properties. My rent was being doubled, effective in 24 hours. I sank onto the lumpy couch, the two letters shaking in my hand. This was not random. This was a targeted attack. On the back of the Brindleport Properties letterhead, in tiny, precise print, was the logo of their parent company. The Heliotrope Trust, Damien Quell. He had not just been filming me for his amusement. He was documenting the first step of my eradication. They hit my job, and now they were hitting my home. They were making it impossible for me to exist in this city. I did not have to wait for him to find me. When I showed up for my shift that evening, Mr. Rook intercepted me at the door. He is here, in the back booth. Marcello Benetti was sitting where Quell had sat, but he did not look out of place. He looked like he owned the shadows. He was drinking black coffee, and the cup looked small in his hands. I slid into the booth opposite him. I did not say hello. I just slid the fine and the rent notice across the table. He glanced at them without surprise. Damien Quell wants this block. He wants the entire wharf district. He plans to level it and build a new logistics hub, a private port for his charity operations. And the Udo, I asked, my voice barely a whisper. His private army, funded by Heliotrope, sanctioned by the city officials he owns. They fabricate violations. They condemn buildings. They break the people who will not sell. Quell believes Brindleport is his personal toy. Why tell me this? Because you are in his way, Marcello said, his dark eyes fixed on me. And because he filmed you. He made it personal. You were not just collateral damage. You were his entertainment. He paused. And because you saved my life. He pushed the two letters back toward me. I can make this go away. I can protect rooks. I can ensure that your landlord develops a sudden and irreversible case of amnesia. You and this diner will be untouchable." The air grew thick. In exchange for what? Quell has a record, a map of his entire operation, every bribe, every payoff, every judge and city councilman in his pocket. He calls it his flow ledger. He's paranoid. It is not digital. It is a physical object, hidden somewhere in this city. I want it. I recoiled. "You want me to be a spy?" "I want you to be what you already are," he said, his voice low and intense. "You are invisible. You are just a girl. You are a waitress. You are beneath his notice. You can go places my men cannot. You can listen. He will not see you coming." I looked down at my hands, at the faint burn scar on my knuckle from the grill. I was being offered a cage, just a different kind. I do not want to belong to anyone, Mr. Benetti. His expression did not harden. If anything, it softened. Just a fraction. "I'm not asking for your obedience. Iris, I'm asking for your honesty. The kind of honesty that pulls a bleeding stranger into a kitchen instead of letting him die in an alley. I do not need you to follow my orders. I need you to see what I cannot." Before I could answer, Mrs. Rook, who had been listening from the counter, walked over. She was a small, tough woman who had not smiled since the first UTO inspection 3 months ago. She slid a single old-fashioned brass key into the table. It was attached to a faded red plastic tag. "The Halcyon Rink," she said, her voice rough. I looked at her, confused. "The old roller skating place over on 7th, been shuttered for almost 5 years, she explained, her arms crossed. "Before Quell became Brindleport's golden boy, before the suits and the charity balls, he used to run his operation out of there. Through his fundraisers in the rink, he still owns the building, lets it rot." The key sat between me and Marcello. It was a lead, a starting point, a test. This was the choice: be crushed under Quell's polished heel, or take the hand of the man who controlled the shadows. I picked up the key. The brass was cold. "I am doing this for Rooks," I said, my voice shaking but firm. "I am doing this for Mr. and Mrs. Rook, not for you." A small, almost imperceptible smile touched the corner of Marcello's mouth. It was not amusement. It was impossibly pride. Accepted. As if summoned by our decision, the black UTO van pulled up to the curb outside. The diner door opened, and the same 2 agents stepped in. The bulldog was holding a large, bright orange sticker. "By order of the Urban Trade Enforcement Office," and he announced, a smug grin on his face, "this establishment is hereby sealed pending sanitation review." He moved to place the sticker on the glass door. I tensed, my stomach dropping. We were too late. Marcello did not even look up from his coffee. He took his phone from his coat pocket. He dialed a single number. He waited, then he spoke, his voice calm, almost bored. "They are at the diner. Fix it." He hung up. The bulldog agent paused, the sticker hovering just inches from the glass. He looked confused. We sat in silence for 1 minute, then 2. The agent's phone buzzed in his pocket. He snatched it out, his face reddening. What do you mean? A procedural error? I have the order right here." "Yes, sir." "I understand, sir." "Yes, sir." His face, moments before triumphant, was now a mask of pure, humiliated rage. He looked at Marcello, who calmly sipped his coffee. The agent crushed the sticker in his fist. He stormed out of the diner, his partner scrambling after him. The van's tires squealed as it tore away from the curb. The gears of power had just visibly shifted. The city's authority had been ground down and spat out by a single phone call. Marcello Benetti placed his cup gently in its saucer. He looked at me, his eyes holding mine. He did not need to say anything. I understood. I had just stepped onto a moving train. It was going fast, and there was no safe way to jump off. The only way out was forward. The Halcyon Rink looked like a place that had died with its eyes open. The black sedan, a car so heavy and quiet it seemed to absorb the sounds of the city, idled at the curb. Sable Cade was at the wheel, his eyes on the rearview mirror. Marcello was in the passenger seat, staring at the rink's boarded-up entrance. "Wait for my signal," Marcello said to Sable. He did not look at me. He just got out of the car. I followed him. The brass key misses. Rook had given me felt slick and cold in my palm. The street was empty, the air heavy with the smell of wet pavement and the distant sour tang of the wharf. The lock was stiff. It took all my weight to turn the key, the scrape and click echoing in the silence. It sounded as loud as a gunshot. We pushed the door open. The air that hit us was a physical thing, a wall of dust, old mildew, and the ghostly sweet scent of stale popcorn. We did not use flashlights, not at first. We let our eyes adjust, using only the weak, watery light from the street that filtered through the filthy, high windows. The main rink was a vast wooden floor, warped and buckled by years of rain leaking through the roof. A massive, grime-coated mirror ball hung from the ceiling like a captured dead moon. The DJ booth was a wreck. Its equipment smashed, the glass kicked in. In the darkness, I could just make out the rental counter, a few pairs of dusty, moldy skates still sitting on the shelf, waiting for skaters who would never come back. "Quell was sentimental about this place," I whispered, my voice soaked up by the dusty air. "Quell is not sentimental about anything." Marcello's voice came from the shadows to my right. "He's arrogant. He believes no one would ever look inside his trash." We moved separately, sweeping the wreckage. Sable had joined us now, a small, high-powered flashlight in his hand, its beam cutting sharp. Nervous circles in the dark. He checked the manager's office. Cleaned out, not even a paper clip. We checked the concession stand. The soda fountain was furred with mold. It was a dead end. I felt a cold nod of disappointment. Misses. Rook was wrong. There was nothing here. Then I saw it. In the far corner, near the lockers, sat a jukebox, a sundial model with the big, curved glass top. While the rest of the rink was decomposing, the jukebox was only dusty. Its chrome was pitted, but someone had wiped it down not too long ago. I ran my fingers over the glass. I had been here once, a long time ago, for a friend's birthday party. I remembered this machine. I had spent my only dollar playing the same song 3 times. "Sable," I said, my voice strange. "I need to see the back of this." Sable glanced at Marcello, who gave a single, sharp nod. Sable produced a multi-tool from his pocket. The screws on the back panel were old, but they were not rusted shut. Someone had maintained this. With a low groan, Sable pulled the wooden panel free. It was not full of records. The mechanism had been ripped out. It was a hollow shell. And inside, built into the base, was a small, velvet-lined compartment. It held 2 things. One was a small, black magnetic data tape, the kind I had not seen in at least a decade. The other was a single, heavy hex key, its metal a dull gunmetal gray. Etched into the side were 2 letters and a number. HT7 Heliotrope Trust? I reached in, my fingers closing around the cold metal of the key and the hard plastic shell of the tape. That is when we heard it. The crunch of heavy boots on the gravel outside, the low rumble of a van engine cutting off, a metallic thud as a heavy door slid shut. Sable. Marcello's voice was a blade. Sable was already at the front window, peering through a crack in the boards. Black van, no markings, 5 men, hard gear. They look like cops, but they are not. 7th Precinct Task Group, Marcello said. The name was bitter. Quell's private patrol. They are not here to arrest us. Iris, they are here to clean the building. My blood went cold. They were here for the same thing we were. Or they were here for us. Marcello was not looking at the door. He was looking at the back wall. Sable, the chute. Get her out. He shoved the tape and the key into my jeans pocket. Go. What about you? I whispered, my feet refusing to move. He pushed me towards Sable. I will be the distraction. They want the rink. I will give them the front door." He was already moving away from us, melting into the deepest shadows by the entrance. He looked back. Just once. "Run." Sable grabbed my arm. "Come on." He dragged me past the ruined concession stand toward a metal door marked Skate Returns. He kicked it open. It was a steep, spiral metal chute, just wide enough for a person. It smelled of old rubber and rust. "Go," Sable ordered. I did not hesitate this time. I sat on the edge and pushed off, plunging into total darkness. The metal was cold through my jeans, and the descent was terrifyingly fast. I came shooting out the bottom, landing hard on a pile of rain-soaked trash bags by the side of the building. Sable landed a second after me, a heavy, controlled thud. Behind us, from inside the rink, I heard a crash, the sound of the front doors being kicked in. Shouts. "This way," Sable hissed. We ran. The parking lot was a maze of potholes, each one a miniature lake of black, oily water. The rain was starting again, a cold, stinging mist. Sable's car was parked 2 streets over. We were never going to make it. A beam of a flashlight cut through the darkness, pinning us. "There, hold it." 2 task group men were rounding the corner of the building. They were big, dressed in black tactical gear, and they were moving fast. I froze, trapped in the light. A shadow detached itself from the side of the rink. It was Marcello. He did not come down the chute. He must have come straight out a side exit. He moved between us and the 2 men. This was the first time I saw him move. It was nothing like I expected. It was not a brawl. It was precise. The first man lunged, a heavy black baton swinging for Marcello's head. Marcello did not block it. He moved inside the swing, his left hand deflecting the man's arm just enough for the baton to whistle past his ear. His right hand, open, struck the man's throat. There was no sound, just a single, sharp thwack. The man did not yell. He just dropped the baton and grabbed his neck, his eyes wide with a terrible, silent surprise. He collapsed onto the wet pavement. The second man, smarter, did not rush. He was reaching inside his jacket for a gun. Marcello kicked the fallen baton. It spun on the wet asphalt, and he scooped it up. He took 1 step forward and brought the baton down, not on the man's head, but on his wrist. I heard the snap, a sharp, wet crack that cut through the rain. The man screamed, clutching his ruined hand. Marcello did not look back. He did not check if they were down for good. He just walked past them, toward me and Sable, the baton still in his hand. "In the car," he said, his voice as calm as if he had just ordered coffee. We did not run. We walked, fast. We got to Sable's car. The engine was already running. Riot Mercer, the other man from the diner, was in the driver's seat. Marcello got in the back with me, and Sable took the front passenger seat. "Go," Marcello said. The car leaped forward, its tires screaming on the wet street, throwing a plume of water high into the air. It was a sound like a challenge, a declaration. We had been there. My heart was hammering so hard I could barely breathe. I pulled the tape and the key from my pocket. My hands were shaking violently. He broke his arm. I stammered. He was pulling a weapon, Marcello said simply. He was not even breathing hard. He was just looking at me, his face unreadable in the passing streetlights. They were not going to arrest us. Sable had a small, specialized device in his hand, a portable data reader. "The tape," he said. I gave it to him. He slotted it in. It was not data. It was audio, a distorted, digitized voice, speaking a single, looping phrase. "Entry protocol requires the garden at the roof where glass wears a crown." I stared at the device. A riddle. What does that mean? Marcello was looking out the side window as the city smeared past in a blur of wet neon. "It is not a riddle," he said, his voice low. "It is a location. Brindleport's nickname is the Steel City. It has no royalty. The only crown in this city is the Arcturus Hotel." My mind clicked. The Glass Crown Conservatory, the nightclub on the roof. "The most exclusive club in the city," Sable confirmed, turning to look at us. "It is a fortress. Quell holds all his high-level meetings there. It is built like a bank vault." The car slowed, pulling into a dark alley 2 blocks from the glittering, spire-like Arcturus. The rain hammered against the roof, a frantic drumbeat. Marcello turned to me. The car was dark, lit only by the faint green glow of the dashboard. "This is the next step. Iris, that ledger is in there. But this is not an abandoned rink. This is the center of his power. You gave me the lead. Your part is done." He was giving me an out. "You saved my life in that alley," Ati said, his voice soft, "when you had no reason. You did not know me. You did not ask to be in this. You chose to step in then. You can choose to step out now." I looked at him, at this man who moved through the world like a shadow, who broke bones without blinking, and who was now offering me a choice. I thought of the UTO agents in the diner. I thought of Quell's smiling, sociopathic face, his phone recording my humiliation. I thought of Mr. Rook, his hands shaking. I thought of just a girl. I did not say anything. I took the hard plastic tape from Sable's reader. I bent down and untied the laces of my left sneaker. I pulled up the worn foam insole. I wedged the tape and the heavy hex key underneath, shoving them flat. They made a hard, uncomfortable lump against my heel. A reminder. A promise. I slipped my shoe back on. I pulled the wet laces tight. So tight they bit into my skin. I double knotted them. I looked up and met Marcello's dark eyes. "I am going." The Glass-Crown Conservatory was a fortress, but fortresses still need supplies. They still have garbage. They still need deliveries of fresh fish. The clue from the audio tape did not lead us to the glittering front lobby of the Arcturus Hotel. It led us here, to Rivet Pier, at 4:30 in the morning. The air was not air. It was a cold, wet wall of smell diesel fumes, rotting wood, gull droppings, and the overwhelming metallic stink of fish guts being shoveled into ice bins. This was the service entrance to the hotel, hidden behind a row of humming, vibrating ice machines, down a long corridor that connected the pier to the hotel's freight operations. Marcello led, with me and Sable flanking him. We were dressed in dark work clothes, stolen from a supply closet back at the rink. We looked like part of the wharf's graveyard shift. The corridor opened into a massive, cavernous warehouse. It was cold, lit by harsh yellow floodlights, and loud. A crowd of about 40 people. All men were gathered in the center. They were not hotel staff. They were dock workers, smugglers, and the kind of hard-faced men who only come out when the sun is down. They were holding an auction. A heavy-set man in greasy overalls stood on a wooden pallet, shouting over the noise. "Next lot from a private European estate, vintage timber brand, collector's items, boys, who will start the bidding at 5,000. He motioned to 2 men who cracked open a wooden crate. It was not filled with wine. Inside, nestled in straw, was a dull gray machine, a high-speed currency counter. "Quell," Marcello said, his voice a low rumble beside my ear. "He's not just using this pier for his logistics hub. He's supplying his competition. He controls the flow of everything, even the tools other crews use to count their money. He takes a cut from everyone, coming and going." "Look at the stencil," I whispered, my eyes narrowing. "On the side of the crate." It was the same hex key logo as the key in my shoe, HT7. "Another one," the auctioneer yelled. "Who wants the set?" They opened a second crate, another machine. "I need the serial numbers," Marcello said. "I see them." I did not need a camera. My memory was my weapon. It was the one thing that had gotten me through 1,000 shifts, remembering 8 separate orders at once. I focused, pushing past the stench and the noise. The first machine AG7749T, the second AG7750T. They were sequential, and he was moving brand new, unregistered equipment, disguised as antiques. I was burning the numbers into my brain when a new smell cut through the fish and diesel. It was clean, expensive cologne and wool. A voice, smooth as silk and cold as the ice, spoke directly into my ear. "You are very far from the diner, little girl." I froze. Damien Quell stood beside me. He was immaculate in a dark gray suit. Not a single drop of rain or fish slime on him. He looked like a king visiting a slum, his face a mask of polite amusement. "Brindleport," he whispered, leaning in as if sharing a secret, "has no room for dreamers, especially ones who dream above their station." His gaze flicked over me, dismissing me entirely, and landed on Marcello. "Benetti, I did not realize you were in the import-export business." Marcello did not look at him. He looked at Quell's hand, which was resting lightly on the shoulder of my jacket. Marcello moved. He placed his own hand on my other shoulder and stepped slightly in front of me. A human shield. His voice was low, but it cut through the noise of the auction. "Do not touch my employee." The word hit the cold air and hung there. Employee. The entire auction faltered. The auctioneer stopped talking. Every single person in that warehouse turned to look. Quell's smile tightened. He had been challenged, not with a gun, but with a word of possession, a claim. Marcello was telling the entire underworld that I was his. "A bold claim," as Quell said, for his eyes glittering. "Protecting your new investment. It is a dangerous game. Collecting strays, they have a tendency to run off." "She is not a stray," Marcello said. "She is under my protection, which means this pier and everything on it is now under my observation." Quell's smile was gone. This was the real power play. And then Quell did something I did not expect. He laughed. He threw his head back and laughed, a hollow, theatrical sound. "Observation. You cannot observe in the dark, Marcello." As if on cue, the heavy thunk-clank of a master breaker being thrown echoed through the warehouse. The yellow floodlights died, plunging the entire cavern into absolute, terrifying darkness. The chaos was instant. Shouts, the sound of a crate splintering, men running, their boots pounding on the concrete, and then a sound that pierced everything, the deafening, ground-shaking whoop of a train whistle. So close it felt like it was inside my chest. The 440 freight run on the tracks just outside. Quell had timed this. It was the perfect cover. I grabbed Marcello's arm. In the split second of darkness, before my eyes had even tried to adjust, I saw it. Not with my eyes, but with the instinct I had honed in that alley 2 years ago. A man had been standing behind Quell. When the lights went out, I saw the intent. A shadow moving at us, not away from us. I saw the glint of the train's passing headlight on a sliver of metal. A knife. "Marcello, down!" I screamed, yanking his arm with all my weight. I did not pull him down. I pulled him sideways, off his balance, just as the man lunged. The blade cut the air where Marcello's ribs had been a second before. A grunt of surprise. The attacker stumbled, his momentum carrying him past us. Marcello was already moving, spinning to face the threat, but I did not let go. I kept pulling him. "No, the lift now." This was not a fight to win. This was an escape. We ran, blind, crashing through a pile of empty plastic bins. I could hear Marcello right behind me, his hand now on my back, pushing me forward. We found the service corridor. The service elevator was a rattling metal cage, its door a mesh grill. I threw myself at it, fumbling for the button. The gate groaned open. Marcello shoved me inside and spun, facing the corridor as 2 more dark shapes rounded the corner. He did not fight them. He just raised his hand, and the heavy baton he had taken from the Halcyon rink was in it. He slammed it against the main electrical box on the wall. Sparks erupted in a blinding white-blue flash. The men in the hall cried out, shielding their eyes. In that flash, Marcello dove into the elevator with me. I slammed the roof button. The mesh gate rattled shut, and with a groan that shook my bones, the elevator began to climb. We were safe, and we were trapped. The elevator was tiny, a fish guts and iron box, barely big enough for 2 people. I was pressed flat against the back wall, and Marcello was pressed flat against me. The air was thick with the stink of fish, but underneath it, I could smell the wool of his coat, the faint, clean scent of his skin, and something metallic, like ozone from the sparks. I was breathing in gasps. My heart felt like it was trying to escape my chest. His body was a solid wall of heat. I could feel his heart hammering, too, a steady, powerful thump, thump, thump against my shoulder. His hand was braced on the wall next to my head, his arm a rigid bar, keeping his weight off me as the elevator shuddered. "You saved me," he whispered. His voice was rough, strained. I looked up. His face was inches from mine, all sharp angles and shadows in the dim light of the control panel. "You still remember how to pick a blind spot?" he said. "I learned it that night in the rain," I replied, my voice shaking. You were too focused on Quell." "I was." His eyes searched mine. "I did not see the second man." "They always have a second man," I said. It was the first rule of survival at Rook's. He did not smile. He just watched me, and the air in that metal box became so thick, so charged. I forgot about the smell of fish. I forgot about the danger. I could only feel the solidness of him, the heat radiating through my clothes, and the terrifying, unspoken thing that was passing between us. The elevator shuddered to a stop. The door opened onto the roof. After the darkness and the stink of the pier, it was like being born into a different world. The sun was just beginning to break the horizon, turning the low clouds a violent, beautiful shade of pink and gold. The Glass Crown Conservatory was in front of us, a massive, domed structure of glass and steel, glittering in the new light. But it was not quiet. Tss, 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 a constant, soft spraying sound. "The sprinklers," I whispered. "They are leaking," Marcello said, his eyes scanning the roof. "The whole system is faulty," he pointed. "That sound, it will cover our footsteps. Let's go." We moved along a gravel path, the sound of the leaking spray heads masking the crunch of our boots. We found the technical room, a small brick shed behind the main greenhouse, just as I knew we would. The door was locked with a simple padlock. Marcello snapped it with a tool from his pocket. Inside, the room was a maze of pumps, water filtration tanks, and humming electrical panels. "Behind the main water tank," I said, pointing. Sable had done his homework. Behind the primary boiler tank was a small, gray, flush-mounted safe, HT7. Marcello knelt, his hands examining the seams. It had no dial, no keypad, just a handle and a single, high-security keyhole. "That is our key," I said, tapping my shoe. "Wait." Marcello ran his fingers along the door's edge. He stopped. "It is trapped." He pointed to a tiny, almost invisible pin near the hinge, a pressure trap. The moment we turn the key, this pin retracts and an alarm goes straight to Quell's private security and the city police. My stomach dropped. "Can you disable it?" "Not without specialized tools. We would need to." I pushed past him, my eyes fixed on the pin. "I know this. This is plumbing. It is just a valve." I dug in my pocket. My hands were shaking again, but not from fear, from adrenaline. I pulled out a quarter. Then I reached into the breast pocket of my borrowed work shirt and pulled out the one thing I had taken from the diner, a single, plastic drinking straw. "What is that?" Marcello asked, his voice tight. "It is a pressure valve," I explained, my voice coming out fast. "The pin is holding a small spring. When the pin moves, the spring will release the pressure, triggering the alarm. We need to keep the pressure equalized." "Iris, just trust me. I need you to hold my hand." He looked at me, confused. "My hand," I said, "is shaking too much. I cannot get the coin in the slit. You have to hold me steady." He did not argue. He knelt beside me, his shoulder pressing against mine. He put his left hand over my right, the one holding the quarter. His grip was firm, warm, and absolutely still. It stopped my tremor instantly. "Okay," I said, taking a breath. "I'm going to slide the coin into the seam, right above the pin. It will hold the spring, but the valve itself is going to hiss, Right, there. I pointed to a tiny hole, no bigger than a pinprick, just above the mechanism. The second I push this in, you have to jam the straw into that hole. It has to be airtight. He just nodded. Now, I pushed the quarter into the nearly invisible seam. It was incredibly tight. Push, Marcello said. I pushed. His hand gave me the strength. The coin slid home with a soft click. A sharp, sudden hiss came from the pinhole. Now, I yelled. Marcello moved, jamming the cut end of the straw into the hole. The hissing stopped. We both held our breath. Nothing. No alarms, no bells. Slowly, I reached into my shoe and pulled out the heavy hex key. My hand was steady now. I fitted it into the lock. It turned, slick and silent. With a heavy thud, the safe door popped open. My heart was pounding. I pulled the door open. It was not gold. It was not cash. It was a row of thick, leather-bound photo ledgers. I pulled the first one out and opened it. It was a photograph, a man in a UDO uniform, his face clear as day, standing by a city-owned truck, handing a thick white envelope to a smiling city councilman. I turned the page. Another photo, a different UTO agent, a different envelope, a judge. I turned the page. A Port Authority commissioner? I turned the page. A police captain. Every single photo was date-stamped, and in the corner, embossed with the official seal of the Urban Trade Enforcement Office. My God, Marcello, I whispered. He kept pictures. It is the ledger, Marcello said, his voice full of a cold, satisfied awe. He did not just write down the bribes, he documented them. He had kept the evidence to ruin them all. And now, we had it. I kept turning the pages of the ledger. Each photograph was a small, perfectly preserved betrayal, a port commissioner accepting a briefcase, a UTO captain signing a manifest while looking the other way, a judge smiling on a golf course, his hand deep in Damien Quell's pocket. Then I reached the last section. The photos were different, less formal. They were candid, taken at a charity gala, a horse race, a private dinner. Quell was in all of them, the gracious host, the center of his corrupt universe. My breath caught. In one photograph, Quell was raising a glass of champagne on a yacht, standing beside him, his arm draped casually over the back of Quell's chair, was a man I recognized. I had seen him in the sedan. I had seen him standing guard in the diner. I looked up at Marcello. He had gone completely, terrifyingly still. He was not looking at the book. He was staring at the photograph, his face carved from ice. He looked at the man in the picture the way a man looks at a ghost. I did not need to ask. He said the name, and it sounded like grinding stone. Milo Crane. Milo, the man who had been his shadow, his most trusted man, his right hand. I closed the ledger. The silence in the small brick room was deafening, broken only by the rhythmic tss, tss, tss of the leaking sprinklers outside. All my stupid, naive assumptions about his world collapsed. I had pictured it as a fortress, a family bound by loyalty, a dark mirror to Quell's world of greedy transactions, but it was not. It was just as fragile as the glass of the conservatory, just as brittle. The line I thought I was standing on his side, the right side of the wrong, it just dissolved. There was no line. There was only a circle. We gathered the ledgers, stuffing them into a heavy canvas tool bag. We walked out of the technical room and back onto the roof, the sun now a painful, bright glare in the sky. We did not speak as we descended in the service elevator, the smell of fish and betrayal thick in the air. We did not speak as we crossed the pier, now bustling with legitimate morning workers who had no idea what had happened in the darkness. We got into Sable's car, the same one that had been waiting. Sable drove, his eyes straight ahead, sensing the poisonous atmosphere. Finally, parked in a gray anonymous garage under a highway overpass, Marcello spoke. He was my father's man, he said to the windshield. He taught me how to drive, how to shoot. He was family. He was in a picture with Quell. Marcello, I said, my voice flat. It looked friendly. Marcello's hand clenched on his knee. his knuckles turning white. "My first instinct," he said, his voice a low, dangerous growl, "is to find Milo and put him in the river. My second is to take these books and burn Quell's entire operation to the ground, burn his buildings, his cars, his port, use violence to cut out the rot." He turned, and his dark eyes finally met mine. The raw pain in them was so deep it almost made me look away. "But that is not what you do. You looked at a pressure-sensitive bomb and saw plumbing. You used a straw to disarm it. You see things differently. That night in the alley, you did not call my men. You called a cab. You chose a different way." He took a deep, ragged breath. "I do not want to just burn it anymore. I want to do what you said. I want to bring it into the light." The air in the car was electric. This was the moment, the pivot. "Light," I said, my voice sharp, "or just a different kind of shadow. You take this evidence. You show it to a few select people. You scare Quell, you get Milo back, and you just take over. You become the new Quell." "Iris." "No." I shook my head, my heart hammering. "If I am in this, I am in this. I am not trading one boss for another. I am not helping you become the new king. You want my help? You want me to keep going? Then you give me your word, right now. You do not use these ledgers to make more dirty deals. You do not trade this evidence to get some other judge in your pocket. You do not bury this. You promise me that this," I tapped the tool bag full of ledgers, "is not just a new weapon for your syndicate. You promise me it is for everyone." He stared at me for a long, heavy minute. The rumble of the trucks on the overpass above us was the only sound. He was weighing his world against mine. "I owe you a promise," he said finally, his voice hoarse. "Just like I owe you a life. You have my word. We bring it all down, publicly." He made a call. 20 minutes later, we were in the back room of a 24-hour coffee shop in a neighborhood I did not recognize. The air smelled of burnt coffee and industrial cleaner. A young woman with bright blue hair, a dozen piercings in her ears, and a laptop covered in stickers was sipping an espresso. She looked up as we walked in, her eyes sharp and intelligent. "Nova Jet," DeMarcello said. "She handles our digital security." "He means I am the only one who knows how his ancient servers work," Nova said, not bothering to stand. "What did you bring me?" "Oh, photo albums. How retro." Marcello laid one of the ledgers on the table. "Quells, there is something else here. We cannot see it." Nova put her espresso down. She pulled a small, magnifying loupe from her pocket and leaned in, examining a photo. Then she whistled, low and impressed. "Damn, he's arrogant, but he is not stupid." She tapped the photograph. "There is a microdot watermark embedded in the grain of every single picture. It is a digital key." She unzipped her backpack and pulled out a flatbed scanner. She scanned the photo, and her fingers flew across her laptop keyboard, the screen filling with lines of code. "It is a pointer," she said after a few minutes of intense silence. "It is a key to a digital backup, the real ledger, all his accounts, his offshore holdings, his entire network." "Where?" Marcello asked, leaning forward. "His office at the trust, his home safe?" "No," Nova said, a small, impressed smile on her face. "Too obvious. He is a bastard, but he is a clever bastard. He used the city's old infrastructure, the main server cluster, in the abandoned Calypso post office. It has been shut down for 10 years, Sable said from the doorway. "The building is," Nova corrected, "but the municipal fiber optic cables are still live. They run right underneath it. It is the perfect digital dead drop. No one would ever think to look." While Nova worked on pulling the access codes, a cold dread began to creep up my spine. Rooks. I had been gone all night. I had to call. I borrowed Sable's phone and stepped into the hallway. I dialed the diner's number. "Mrs." Rook picked up on the first ring. "Rook's Diner." Her voice was not rough. It was hollow, broken. "Mrs. Rook, it is me. It is Iris. Are you okay?" There was a long, terrible silence. I heard her take a shaky breath. "Iris, oh, child, they came back." My blood went cold. What UTO? No, she whispered. Not UTO. Not official. Just thugs. About an hour after you left with him, they had bats. They smashed the kitchen, Iris. They broke the grill. They smashed every plate. They poured bleach and motor oil all over the storeroom. It is all gone. We are done. Iris. They broke us. The phone felt like a block of lead in my hand. I could not breathe. Mrs. Rook. You stay away, child, she sobbed, and the sound tore through me. You do not come back here. This is not your fault, but you stay away. She hung up. I stood in the hallway, the smell of burnt coffee choking me. This was my fault. I had brought this storm to their door. I had been playing detective in a glass tower while the people I was trying to protect were being destroyed. I walked back into the room. Marcello and Nova were looking at a complex map on the laptop screen. Marcello looked up. He took one look at my face and knew. Rooks, he said. It was not a question. I just nodded, my throat too tight to speak. He stood up. He did not say he was sorry. He did not offer empty comfort. He walked over to me, took my left hand, and pushed something onto my third finger. It was a ring, silver, plain, with a brushed, matte finish. It felt heavy. What is this? I whispered. It is the core of the story, he said, his voice low and intense. Twist the bezel, to the left. I twisted the simple silver band. A tiny, almost invisible seam opened, and the top of the ring popped open like a locket. Inside, nestled in black foam, was a single micro SD card. Nova is making a copy of everything, he said. The photos, the watermark key, the Calypso server location, if everything goes wrong, if they catch us, if I fall. That ring is the only thing that matters. That is the promise. He closed it. It clicked shut, becoming a simple silver ring again. As I was staring at it, feeling the impossible weight of it on my hand, his phone buzzed on the table. He picked it up, his face, already grim, went blank. What is it? I asked. He turned the screen to me. It was a text message from Milo Crane. I know you have the books. It is not what it looks like. I can explain. Meet me alone. You know where. It is a trap, Marcello said, his voice flat and dead. He wants the ledgers and he wants to finish the job for Quell. He was already dialing Sable. Get the team ready. We are setting a trap of our own. Wait. He paused, his thumb hovering over the call button. Do not, I said. My voice was shaky, but it was clear. I was looking at the ring, at the promise. You just said he was like family, and you are going to treat him like an enemy. You are going to put a bullet in him, just like Quell would. He betrayed me, Marcello said, his voice cold. Or maybe he was trapped, I shot back, the words tasting like acid. Maybe Quell had something on him. Maybe he is trying to get out. You go in with guns. You will never know. You will just be another monster in the dark. I pointed at the phone. You want to be different? This is it. Do not set a trap. Do not bring your army. Just listen first. He stared at me, his jaw tight. He was at war with himself. The old ways versus this new, terrifying path I was dragging him down. He slowly lowered the phone. He took a breath, and then he texted Milo back, a single word. When? The reply was instant, midnight. He nodded. A final, grim decision made, Wharf 9. He put the phone in his pocket and looked at me. We wait. We left the coffee shop. We spent the rest of the day in a silent, sterile hotel room, the tool bag with Quell's entire life sitting by the door. Night fell. The air in the room grew heavy, thick with unspoken words and the rising humidity from outside. I stood at the window, twisting the new silver ring on my finger. The sky over Brindleport was a bruised, sickly purple, the clouds churning. A storm was coming, a storm of rain and a storm of betrayal, and Marcello was walking right into the middle of it. The text from Milo or Quell was a dead end, a trap we had wisely avoided. Wharf 9 remained empty, a collection of skeletal pilings sticking out of the churning, black water, the real storm, the one that had been threatening all night, finally broke. It was not rain, it was a deluge. The sky opened and the wind howled, driving the water in horizontal sheets that stung my face. We ran, blinded, soaked to the skin in seconds. In here, Marcello's voice was a low shout over the roar of the wind. He grabbed my hand, his grip like iron, and pulled me through a narrow, splintered doorway. We stumbled out of the storm and into a sudden, muffled silence. We were in a boathouse. The sign over the door, faded and peeling, had read Beacon Chapel. It was an absurd name for a rotting wooden shed. There was no electricity. The only light came from the occasional, violent flash of lightning that lit the interior in stark, blue-white relief. The air was heavy, thick with the smell of old, damp wood, tar, and the cold, mineral scent of the lake. The world shrank to this dark, enclosed space. The only sounds were the furious, deafening drumbeat of the rain on the tin roof and the soft, constant slap, slap, slap of the water against the hulls of the two small sailboats docked inside. I leaned against a piling, my entire body shaking, trying to catch my breath. My clothes were a second skin, cold and heavy. Marcello stood in the center of the room, water streaming from his black hair and running in rivulets from his coat. He was watching the storm through the open doorway, his body tense. A flash of lightning lit his face, and I saw it, a thin, angry red scratch running from his cheekbone down to his jaw. He must have caught it on a branch during our run. My hand moved on its own. I did not even think. I took a step toward him, my sneakers squeaking on the wet planks. I lifted my fingers, which were trembling, not from fear this time, but from the bone-chilling cold. I meant to just point it out, but my fingertips brushed his skin. He went absolutely rigid. The scratch was hot. Beneath it, his skin was rough with stubble. He did not move. He did not lean into my touch. He did not pull away. He just stood there, a statue of deadly potential, his dark eyes fixed on mine. He did not touch me. He was waiting. He was giving me the choice. In his world, a world of taking, he was letting me decide. The rain on the roof hammered, a relentless, chaotic rhythm that echoed the pounding in my own chest. It was the sound of my life, frantic, loud, always bracing for the next impact. I did not pull my hand back. The scratch, the simple human wound, broke through the last of my fear. This was not the ghost of Brindleport. This was just a man. I slid my trembling hand down from his face, over the rough collar of his wet coat, and flattened my palm against his chest. I held it there, needing to feel it. Beneath the layers of wet fabric, his heartbeat. It was not the frantic hammering of my own. It was slow. It was steady. It was a deep, solid, anchoring thump, thump, thump that vibrated right through my palm. It was the most powerful and the most gentle thing I had ever felt. It was the sound of absolute safety. The confession tumbled out of me, a whisper so quiet I almost did not say it, lost in the noise of the storm. "That night," I said, my voice thick, "the alley, after I put you in the cab." I had to stop, swallow the sudden lump in my throat. I went back inside. I was so scared. I hid in the walk-in refrigerator. I sat down on a bag of potatoes and I cried. I cried until I could not breathe because I was so terrified of what I had just done. I thought they would come for me. He did not move. He did not speak, but his eyes softened. Then his voice came, a low, rough murmur that was closer than I expected, a sound that seemed to vibrate inside my own chest. "I know," he said. "I heard you." I looked up, stunned. He had been bleeding out, half conscious, and he had heard me. He had heard my fear. The last brittle wall I had kept around my heart, the one that screamed at me to run, to hide, to be just a girl. It did not just crack, it disintegrated. It turned to dust. I did not realize I was leaning in until I was already moving. It was a fractional shift, a small, questioning tilt. My eyes asked the question my voice could not. His eyes searched mine, a dark, intense, silent inquiry. "Are you sure?" I gave a single, tiny nod. He closed the distance. He moved with that same deliberate slowness I had seen in the parking lot. But this was not violence. This was care. His lips met mine. It was not a kiss of passion. Not at first. It was a kiss of shelter. It was gentle, unbelievably soft, and devastatingly patient. It was a question, and a promise, and a thank you, all wrapped in one. It was warm. He was so warm. His hand, the one that had been clenched at his side, slowly lifted. He did not grab me. He did not pull me. He placed his hand on the small of my back, his palm flat, a gesture of pure support. It was an anchor, holding me steady in the storm, telling me I was safe. That simple, respectful touch broke me open. A warmth I had not known I was missing flooded my veins, a deep, molten heat that chased out the cold, the damp, and the years of fear. My hands, no longer shaking, moved up. One slid into his wet, thick hair, my fingers gripping, the other hand clutched his shoulder, holding on, not just to him, but to this impossible, solid reality. I was not just a girl. I was the one who had saved him, and I was the one he was protecting. His coat was heavy, soaked, and cold. I tugged at the lapel, and he understood. Shrugging it off, it landed on the wet wooden planks with a heavy, final thud. Now it was just his shirt, thin cotton, damp and clinging to the hard muscles of his chest. The kiss deepened. It was still slow, still reverent, but there was a new hunger to it. Not a hunger to possess, but a hunger for life, for warmth, for this single stolen moment of peace. Our breathing grew heavier, the sound mingling with the softening rain. He turned us, gently pressing me back against the solid wood wall of the boathouse, shielding me from the drafty doorway with his own body. His lips moved from my mouth, tracing a hot, slow path along my jaw to the sensitive pulse point just below my ear. I arched my neck, a silent, trusting surrender. His hands moved from my back, up my sides, his thumbs drawing slow, grounding circles on my ribs. He stroked my hair, his fingers threading through the wet strands, tucking them behind my ear. Every touch was deliberate. Every movement was a question, and my body answered with a resounding yes. All my defenses, all the sharp, jagged edges I had built up for years, simply melted under his careful, respectful touch. Trust, a terrifying and absolute trust, flooded the spaces where the fear used to be. For a long time, we just stood there, breathing each other in, while the storm outside finally exhausted itself. The hammering on the roof softened, easing into a steady, rhythmic patter, the eye of the storm. We did not part, we just shifted. He found a dry, folded tarp in one of the boats, and we sat on the dock, our backs against the wall, his arm a heavy, warm, and profoundly comforting weight around my shoulders. He pulled me close, and I rested my head on his chest, listening to that steady, reliable heartbeat. We sat in the quiet, listening to the water, and then we began to talk. We whispered about the ledgers, about the Calypso post office, about Milo, about Quell. It was the strangest, most intimate thing, our voices weaving plans of counterattack and digital theft in the quiet, warm darkness. This was not just a romance. This was an alliance, forged in a back alley and sealed in a storm. It was love, tangled up inextricably with survival. I touched the ring on my finger. The silver was cool against my skin. "Marcello," I whispered, "I am here. If we survive this, if we actually win, I do not want a parade. I do not want money." I paused. "I just want a normal breakfast." I felt his chest move, a low rumble. He was laughing, a quiet, rusty sound he so rarely used, a true smile. "A normal breakfast," he repeated, his voice laced with a humor I had never heard. "At Rook's," I clarified, if there is a Rook's to go back to." The humor vanished, replaced by that solid iron resolve. He tilted my chin up, forcing me to meet his eyes in the gloom. "We will rebuild it. We will build it back, brick by brick, I promise you." The moment was perfect, a small, warm bubble of peace in a dark, treacherous world. And then the world popped it. His phone, sitting on the planks beside us, vibrated. The buzz was violently loud in the new silence. The warmth in his eyes vanished, replaced by the familiar, cold focus. He reached for it. The screen lit up his face, turning his features a harsh, ghostly blue. His expression hardened. He went still. "What is it?" I asked, sitting up, the cold air instantly hitting me. He did not say anything. He just turned the screen toward me. It was a new message, an anonymous number. One line. "Crane will betray you tomorrow night." The Calypso post office was a tomb. It stood on a dead-end street, its grand stone facade blinded by sheets of plywood, its bronze doors green with neglect. The air inside was still and heavy, smelling of dry rot, moldering paper, and the ghosts of 1,000 forgotten letters. Sable jimmied the lock on a side door, and we slipped in, one by one. Nova Jet was first, her laptop bag slung over her shoulder, a high-powered flashlight in her hand. Her beam cut a sharp white cone through the oppressive dark, illuminating dust motes that hung suspended in the air like trapped stars. "This way," she whispered, her voice sounding unnaturally loud in the silence. The old sorting floor. We followed her through the decaying main hall, our footsteps echoing on the marble floor. Marcello moved with a predatory stillness, his eyes scanning the high, dark corners, his hand never far from the inside of his jacket. He was coiled, a spring wound so tight I could feel the tension radiating off him. He was walking into a trap, and he knew it. The sorting floor was a vast cavern of rusted metal and broken-down conveyor belts. Rows and rows of old brass mailboxes lined one wall, their little doors hanging open like mouths in a silent scream. "One of these," Nova murmured, "is not like the others." She ran her hand along a bank of boxes, her fingers tracing the numbers. She stopped at 221B, a clack and a whir as she inserted a thin electronic tool. Nothing. "Kenket, Kenket." A sound made me jump. A single mailbox door, 2 rows down, was swinging rhythmically, squeaking on its dry hinge. "Air pressure differential," Nova said, not looking up. "We are getting close." She moved to the swinging door. "This one." She did not use a tool. She just pressed the back of the box, and a section of the wall clicked open. Old maintenance access. But that is not what we are here for. She shone her light on the floor in front of the mailboxes. It was just dusty linoleum, warped and cracked. But Nova saw something else. She knelt, brushed away a thick layer of grime, and revealed the edges of a square-cut hatch, its ring pull countersunk and filled with dirt. She grabbed the pull, braced her feet, and hauled with a groan of metal. The hatch opened. A wave of intensely cold, sterile air blasted our faces. Below was a small, steel ladder leading down into a white, brightly lit room. It was not a post office basement. It was a mini cold storage server room, clean, modern, and completely out of place. "He's using the old building as a shell," Nova breathed, her eyes wide with professional admiration. "This is it. I am going in." She started down the ladder. I followed. Marcello was right behind me, his hand on my back. And that is when the voice came from the darkness of the sorting room. "That is far enough." We froze. Floodlights snapped on, blinding us, pinning us in their harsh, white glare. Milo Crane stepped out from behind a smashed conveyor belt. He looked immaculate, his suit perfect, his face calm. He was not alone. 4 men in the black gear of the 7th Precinct Task Group flanked him, their weapons raised. "Milo," Marcello said. His voice was flat, devoid of all emotion. "Marcello," Milo nodded, a small, sad smile on his face. "You should not have come. I told you to come alone." "You were never going to meet me alone," Marcello stated. No, Milo agreed. I was not. His eyes slid past Marcello, past Nova on the ladder, and landed on me. He saw the silver ring on my hand. His smile widened. She's even wearing it. Quell said you had gone soft. I did not believe him. He held out his hand. Give me the ring, little girl. Give me the ledgers, and I will make this fast for him, a kindness, for old time's sake. Little girl, the same words, the same dismissal, the same bile rose in my throat. I saw Marcello's hand twitch. His jacket shifted. He was going for his gun. He was going to kill the man he called family. Marcello, no, I hissed. He stopped. His eyes locked with mine. I saw the inferno of betrayal warring with the cold iron of his promise. He did not shoot. He turned his hand not toward his gun, but toward me. He grabbed my arm. Back into the vault, he yelled at Nova. And then he moved. He did not attack Milo. He spun, grabbed a massive wheeled steel mail cart, and with a single powerful shove, sent it crashing into the main sorting room door, jamming it shut. Sable, he roared. I'd not even seen Sable in the shadows. He appeared, tackling one of the UTO men. In the next second, Marcello raised his elbow and smashed the red fire alarm box on the wall. The whoop, whoop, whoop of the alarm was deafening, a physical assault of sound. But it was not just an alarm. A second later, a deafening hiss erupted from pipes in the ceiling. A thick white fog, a fire suppression mist began to pour into the room, obscuring everything in seconds. Iris, run! Marcello bellowed, pulling me through the chaos. The mist was cold, wet, and disorienting. I heard shouts, Milo screaming, "Get the door! Get them!" We ran, blind, toward the back exit we had scouted. Sable was behind us, a ghost in the fog, covering our retreat. Then I heard a crash. A heavy metal shelving unit, overloaded with old packages, toppled over, its contents spilling across the floor. A sharp, agonized grunt. I stopped, pulling against Marcello's grip. Sable. Marcello turned through a thinning patch of mist. I saw him. Sable was on the floor. The heavy steel shelf had fallen on him, pinning his left arm to the ground. He was trapped. Milo and one of the UTO men were closing in, their shapes dark and menacing in the white fog. Marcello was torn. His eyes darted from me to the exit, to his trapped man. I did not wait for his decision. I let go of his hand. I ran back. Iris, Marcello's voice was a roar of panic. I'm not leaving him, I screamed. I grabbed a metal mail hook from the floor and jammed it under the shelf. Trying to get leverage, the UTO man raised his weapon. Before he could fire, Marcello was there. He moved like a freight train, slamming into the man and driving him back into the mist. Get him up, Marcello yelled at me. I put all my weight on the mail hook. The shelf lifted, just an inch. Sable cried out, dragging his arm free. It was bleeding, bent at an angle it should not be. This way, Sable grunted, pushing me toward a different exit, a smaller door marked Postmaster. We burst through it and onto a narrow, high balcony that overlooked the sorting floor, and stopped dead. Damien Quell was standing there. He was not in tactical gear. He was in one of his perfect suits, holding his phone up. He was live streaming. And as you can see, citizens of Brindleport, Quell said, his voice smooth and oily, his phone's camera panning over us. The Benetti Syndicate, in their desperation, are not just criminals. They are vandals. They are destroying this city's heritage, this beautiful, historic landmark, all to cover their tracks. He was not trying to catch us. He was painting us. He was framing us for the very destruction his own men had started, the whoop of the alarm, the hissing mist. It was the perfect backdrop for his play. We are trapped, Sable panted, clutching his arm, his back to the wall. I looked at Quell, at his smug, smiling face, and the rage that had been simmering for days finally boiled over. One of the UTO men who had been with Milo had dropped his heavy gear bag in the mist. I had scooped up something that fell out of it, a small, black, portable Wi-Fi router. I shoved it at Nova, who had come up the ladder behind us. Can you stop that? Nova's eyes lit up. "Stop it," she said, her fingers already flying, plugging a cable from the router into her laptop. "I can redirect it." Quell was still monologuing. "The UTO are bravely trying to contain these animals." "Got him," Nova whispered. On Quell's phone, his own face vanished. The stream he was broadcasting to thousands of people across the city suddenly changed. It was replaced by a high-resolution, scanned image of one of the ledger photos, the one of the UTO captain. And then Nova typed an overlay. The words appeared, stark and black, over the photo. "Ask UTO what is in envelope AG7749T. Quell's face went from smug to confused to bone-white rage in 2 seconds. He tapped his phone, but he had lost control. The chat feed, visible on his screen, exploded. "What's envelope AG? That's Captain Davies. Is this the ledger?" Quell's phone buzzed violently. He snarled into it. What do you mean? Stand down. An internal investigation now." He looked up at us, his mask of civility gone, his face a mask of pure hatred. "You." Below us, the UTO men, hearing new orders in their earpieces, were retreating in confusion, dragging their 2 subdued men with them. In the chaos, Sable, his one good arm like a vice, had tackled Milo and zip-tied his hands. The Calypso post office fell silent, save for the dripping mist and the fading whoop of the alarm. Marcello walked slowly over to Milo, who was kneeling on the floor, defeated. Sable had his gun pressed to the back of Milo's head. "Just do it, Em," Milo spat. "Get it over with." Marcello looked at the man who had been his brother. Then he looked at me, standing there, my knuckles white, my whole body shaking. He had kept his promise not to start the fight. Now, he would keep the promise to finish it. He shook his head, not at Milo, but at Sable. "No." He looked down at Milo. "Get him out of the city," Marcello said, his voice cold and final. "Drive him south for 10 hours. Leave him on the side of the road with nothing. If he ever comes back to Brindleport, I will finish it." He kept his word. "Marcello," Nova said, her voice quiet. "We had won. We were safe." But her face was pale. "What is it?" Marcello asked, walking over to her. "I have the main ledger. It is all here. Every account. It is beautiful." She swallowed. "But there is something else. Another folder encrypted. Crown_final. "What is it?" I asked. "It is a dead man's switch," Nova said, pointing to her screen. "It is the real evidence, the originals, the unredacted videos, and it is set to automatically distribute to every news outlet on the coast, and then delete itself. It is timed." My blood ran cold. Time for when? Nova checked the clock. 36 hours from now. She looked up, her eyes wide. "That is the night of the Lionbridge Hall Port Gala." Marcello looked at me. The weariness was gone, replaced by a cold, sharp, and glittering resolve. "Quell thinks he controls the narrative," he said. "He wants to stand on that stage and be crowned the savior of the city." He reached out, his fingers brushing the silver ring on my hand. "We will be there. We will release it in front of everyone." The news of what happened at Rook spread through the Wharf district like fire in a dry field. The thugs, sent by Quell or Milo, had meant to break the diner's spine, to make an example of it. They had failed. When I walked back to the diner the next morning, my stomach hollow with guilt and dread, I did not find a tomb. I found a hive. The front door was propped open. The sound of hammers, saws, and angry, determined voices filled the street. "Mr." Rook was on a stepladder, painting over graffiti, "Mrs." Rook, her face set in a mask of grim determination, was directing 3 burly men who were hauling in a new sheet of heat-resistant glass for the flat top. "They took our plates," she said to me, her voice rough. "So we are using paper. They poured oil on our flour. So Sal is making pancakes with batter from the diner 3 blocks over. The people of the wharf, the cabbies, the line cooks, the nurses, the longshoremen, the people Quell had been squeezing for years were there. They brought wood. They brought paint. They brought bags of coffee and boxes of nails. They were not just rebuilding a diner. They were building a fortress. Rook's, in the space of 12 hours, had stopped being a restaurant. It had become a supply station, a headquarters. A grizzled old man with hands like worn leather approached Marcello, who was standing quietly by the door, just watching. "Benetti," the man said, his voice a low gravel. He was the head of the dockworker circle, the unofficial, unspoken union that really controlled who loaded what at Rivet Pier. "We heard what you did at the pier, and we heard what they did here." "I am handling it," Marcello said. "No," the man said, shaking his head. "You are not. We do not like you, Benetti. Your family has been a leech on this wharf for 30 years, but we hate him." He nodded toward the glittering spire of the Arcturus Hotel, visible even from here. "Quell is not a leech. He's a parasite that kills the host. We are not letting him kill the host." He pointed at me. "She is one of us. Rook's is one of ours. You go to your fancy party at Lionbridge Hall. You do what you have to do. The dockworker circle will handle the exits. Quell's private cops, the UTO, they will not be a problem. We will be the traffic that blocks the street." He was offering us an escape route, an army, not of syndicate soldiers, but of ordinary, angry men. Marcello just nodded, once. "We are grateful." We set up our command center in the back office of the diner. It was tiny, cramped, and smelled of onions and old receipts. Nova Jet had her laptop open, cables running to 3 different burner phones, her fingers flying. "Okay," she said, tapping her screen. "The dead man switch on Crown_Final is set. The moment Quell's security team hits the jam signal button in that hall, which they will, the second they see our faces, it will not matter." She pointed to her screen. "The signal jam will act as the go trigger. The second their system goes up, mine goes out, it will auto-route through a data fog I have built over the last 12 hours. It will look like it is coming from 100 different servers at once, from here to the coast, and the entire, unredacted, high-definition file of Quell's whole rotten life will be sent to one place." "The news?" I asked. "Better," Nova grinned. "The Civic Oversight Forum, the Independent Auditors Group, the only clean ones left in the city. They have been trying to get a warrant for Quell's books for a year. This file will not just give them a warrant, it will give them a conviction." The weight of it all was suffocating. It was not just about the diner anymore. It was about the whole city, and it all hinged on us, on me. That night, after the last of the volunteer builders had left, I stood in the diner's cracked bathroom mirror, practicing. The new glass was not installed yet, so the reflection was a spider web, breaking my face into a dozen different pieces. I held up my phone, reading the words I had tried to write. "My name is Iris Monroe. I am sorry to interrupt this event. I am a waitress, and I wanted to show you something." My voice was weak. It was trembling. I sounded like a child. I sounded exactly like just a girl. "I cannot do this," I whispered, dropping the phone. "They are not going to listen to me. They will see me and they will laugh. Quell will laugh." "Because you are apologizing." Marcello was standing in the doorway, his arms crossed. He had been listening in silence for 10 minutes. "You are apologizing for being there," he said, his voice quiet, not angry. "You are apologizing for taking up space. You are apologizing for existing." He walked in, standing behind me. He looked at my fractured reflection in the mirror. "Stop apologizing." "I do not know how," I whispered, tears of frustration stinging my eyes. "Breathe," he said. "Breathe from here." He gently touched his fingers to my diaphragm. "Plant your feet. Do not sway. You are not a guest in that room. You own it. You have the truth. They do not." He stepped back. "Now, again. And this time, do not say, sorry. Do not say, I just. Do not ask for their permission. Tell them. I took a deep breath. I planted my feet, my sneakers tacky on the floor. I looked at the broken image of my own eyes. My name is Iris Monroe. I said, my voice was louder, firmer. I'm a waitress at Rook's Diner, and I have something you need to see. Good, he said. Again, this time. Do not pause at the end. Your sentence is a statement, not a question. My name is Iris Monroe. Oh, Iris, child. We both turned. Mrs. Rook was standing there, her arms full of clean, pressed aprons. She looked at me, at Marcello, at the tiny, tense space we were occupying, and she understood everything. You have been practicing, she said. It was not a question. She put the pile of aprons on the sink. She took one from the top. It was crisp, white, and perfectly ironed. They ruined your others, she said simply. She unfolded it. I am not going to be serving anyone. Mrs. Rook, I said gently. I know, she said. She held it out to me. This is not a uniform. This is armor. I took it from her. The cotton was smooth and cool. In the corner, by the hem, she had embroidered something in a simple, dark blue thread. It did not say Rooks. It did not say staff. It said not just a girl anymore. I held it to my chest, and for the first time, the tears I had been fighting finally fell. Later, as the city outside finally quieted, Marcello and I sat at the new counter, drinking black, sludgy coffee. There is one last thing, he said, turning to face me. When this is done, after the gala, Quell will be finished, but his people will not. The city will be in chaos. My world will be, too. He was not looking at me. He was staring at the new, clean glass of the coffee machine. I have arranged for a private security unit, the Harbor Safe Unit. They are clean. They are not mine. They are not anyone's. They have a new identity for you, a passport, a bank account with enough money to go anywhere, a car, waiting 2 states over. I stopped breathing. He was offering me an escape. The gala ends, he continued, his voice low and flat. You walk out the back, where the dockworker circle is waiting. You do not stop. You do not look back. You get in their car, and you are gone. You can be anyone, a teacher, a baker, a different name, a normal life. He was offering me my dream, the thing I had wanted, and it felt like an execution. I see, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I looked down at the silver ring he had given me, the core of the story. I did not answer his offer. Instead, I stood up. I faced him. We need rules, I said. He looked up, confused. What? For tomorrow night, for the gala, we need rules. My rules. He slowly stood up, facing me. The counter between us. Go on. Rule 1, I said, my voice clear, echoing in the empty diner. No blood. I do not care what they do. I do not care how they come at us. We do not shed blood. We are not them. We do not win by becoming them. Iris, if they are armed. I do not care. No civilian gets hurt. No one gets taken hostage. No one dies. We win with this. I pointed to my head, and with this, I pointed to the ring. Rule 2, all of it goes public. All of it. No secret deals. No holding back the ledger on that judge you might need later. We burn the whole system, not just Quell. Agreed, he said, without hesitation. Rule 3, I said. I do it. I walk out there. I am the one who speaks. They need to see my face. They need to see the little girl they all ignored. He stared at me, his face a mask of warring emotions. I could see the protector in him wanting to lock me in this room, but the man who had sat in the boathouse, the man who had trusted me, won. Agreed, he said, his voice hoarse. I nodded. That was my answer. I turned away from him and grabbed a guest check tablet and a pen from the counter. I sat down. I needed to write the opening, the real one. I started writing. The words did not stop. I wrote about the smell of burnt coffee and fear. I wrote about the UTO's fake badges. I wrote about the rent hikes, the smashed kitchen, the man who called me sweetheart and just a girl. I wrote the truth. I did not realize how long I had been writing until I felt his presence behind me. He had not moved. He was just standing there, reading over my shoulder. I looked up at him. His face was undone. The mask was gone. He was looking at me, at the words on the page, with a raw, fierce expression of awe and something that looked terrifyingly like love. "You are not walking beside me tomorrow night, Iris," he whispered. I looked at him, confused. "You are walking in front of me." He reached out, his fingers tracing the embroidered letters on the new apron folded on the counter. The clock on the wall struck 4 in the morning. The city was holding its breath. The gala was just hours away. Lionbridge Hall was not just a room, it was a statement of power. The chandeliers were not lights, they were glittering. Crystal suns, hanging like arrogant stars over the most powerful people in Brindleport. The air was thick with the smells of expensive perfume and the sharp, bright tang of champagne. Damien Quell was on the central stage, bathed in a warm, golden spotlight. He was in a flawless tuxedo, his smile radiating practiced charm. He was the king of this city, and this gala was his coronation. Below him, ringing the stage, were not hotel security, but his UTO thugs poured into ill-fitting suits, their hands clasped, their eyes scanning the crowd with a predator's boredom. My cue came. "And now?" Quell's voice boomed over the speakers, smooth and deep. "A very special guest, a testament to the opportunity this city offers. A young woman who has truly benefited from the Heliotrope Trust's vision for a new Brindleport. Please welcome Miss Iris Monroe." I stepped from the darkness of the backstage wings into the blinding light. My feet, in the simple black flats I owned, were silent on the plush stage. I wore a plain black dress, the only one I had. Tied tightly around my waist, stark white against the black, was the apron Mrs. Rook had given me my armor. The ocean of noise, the murmuring of 1,000 conversations, ceased. A vacuum of silence opened up, and then the whispers filled it. "Who is that? My God, is that a waitress? He cannot be serious. It is just a girl. She's wearing an apron." I planted my feet. I did not sway. I looked straight at Quell. He smiled, a wide, benevolent smile for the cameras at the side of the stage. He held a second microphone out to me. This was his trap. This was his grand media play, to show the little mouse thanking the lion for the privilege of being in his presence. "Miss Monroe," he said, his voice dripping with false kindness. "Welcome. Please, tell these generous patrons, what does opportunity in Brindleport mean to you?" He wanted me to stammer. He wanted me to be small. He wanted me to say, "Thank you." I took a breath. I opened my mouth. "She knows everything about opportunity." The voice was not mine. It was Marcello's. It was amplified, electric, cutting through the hall from above. A single, harsh spotlight snapped away from the stage. It shot up, illuminating a private balcony overlooking the hall. Marcello Benetti stood there. He was not in a tuxedo, and he was in his dark coat, his shirt open at the collar. He looked down at the glittering crowd, not as an intruder, but as a judge. The crowd did not whisper. They gasped. A collective, sharp intake of breath, the ghost of the syndicate, made flesh in the middle of their party. "That girl," Marcello's voice boomed clear and cold, "was called just a girl. But that girl saved my life once. Tonight, she is going to save the city." Quell's face, for 1 millisecond, lost its mask. Pure, unfiltered rage flashed in his eyes. He signaled to his UTO commander below. "Cut his microphone, get him out of there." But it was too late. That was not a speech, it was the signal. The massive 60-foot screen behind Quell, which had been displaying a looping, computer-generated video of his future port, suddenly went black. A second later, it lit up. It was not a video. It was a high-resolution photograph. The UTO captain, the white envelope, the date stamp. The screen split. Another image. The judge on the golf course, his hand in Quell's pocket. The screen split again. A bank ledger. A wire transfer for $200,000. The sender, Heliotrope Trust. The recipient, a shell company. The screen filled, a mosaic of damnation, the letters, the photos, the accounts, the entire Crown _ final file, unveiled. And in the corner of every image, Nova's digital watermark, the HT7 hex key, was spinning, a relentless, accusing finger pointing directly at the man on the stage. The hall erupted. It was not a gasp. It was a roar. A woman screamed. A chair crashed as someone stood too fast. Quell was frozen, his face as white as a sheet. He turned to his commander. "Jam it, shut it down now." The UTO commander screamed into his radio. The screen flickered, it stuttered, and it went black. Quell let out a sharp, ragged breath of a laugh. He grabbed the microphone. "My deepest apologies. Ladies and gentlemen, a technical failure, a desperate, childish prank by this city's criminal element." He was cut off, not by the screen, by the audience. A single cell phone rang, then another, then 100. A wave of chimes, rings, and vibrations swept the room. A man in the front row, a banker with a face like old money, stared at his phone, his hand shaking. It is here," he stammered, his voice loud in the sudden, new silence. "The file, it is on my phone." Nova's data fog, the jam signal, had been the trigger. She had not tried to fight his system. She had hijacked it. The instant Quell's jammer went up, her protocol went out, pushing the entire unredacted file to every single smart device in Lionbridge Hall. The room was lit by the blue-white glow of 1,000 phone screens, all displaying the same truth, all displaying Quell's epitaph. The main doors of the hall burst open, crashing against the walls. It was not the city police. It was a dozen men and women in crisp, gray, professional uniforms, Harbor Safe Unit, the clean team. This area is a potential crime scene, their leader, a woman with a calm, authoritative voice, announced, "We are securing this hall on behalf of the Civic Oversight Forum. No one leaves. All digital devices are considered evidence." It was Marcello's legal masterpiece. They were not arresting Quell. They were not fighting the UTO. They were securing the scene. They were protecting the evidence from the police, from Quell, from everyone. Quell saw it. He saw his UTO guard, his pet police captain, his bought and paid for judges, all rendered useless. He was trapped. The mask of the philanthropist did not just crack, it shattered and fell away. The man underneath was a cornered animal. His eyes, full of a venomous hatred, found me, and he was 3 feet away. He lunged. He was not going to run. He was going to take me. "You!" he snarled, his hand reaching for my throat. I did not even have time to flinch. Marcello was there. He had not run from the balcony. He had walked. He was on the stage, between me and Quell, a solid, immovable object. The UDO men surged forward, batons finally drawn, forming a circle around us. They had their target now. "Arrest him!" Quell shrieked, pointing a shaking finger at Marcello. "That is Marcello Benetti. He is the animal. He is the one who did this." Marcello did not look at the batons. He did not look at Quell. He looked at the Harbor Safe Unit commander, who was calmly observing. He looked at the hundreds of phones, all still recording. Then, slowly, he held his hands out in front of him, wrists together, offering them. "If you need a headline," Marcello said, his voice calm and clear, cutting through the chaos, "if you need a man in cuffs for the morning papers, take me." The UTO men stopped. They hesitated. This was not in their script. But hear the story first. Marcello said, he did not look at me, but he nodded. Just once, in my direction. His stillness, his absolute refusal to meet their violence with his own, shifted the gravity of the entire room. The panic died. The crowd went silent. They were listening. It was my turn. I stepped forward. To the microphone Quell had tried to trap me with. I planted my feet on the stage. I took a breath. "My name is Iris Monroe," I said. My voice did not shake. It rang out, crisp and clear, over the silent, glittering crowd. 2 years ago, in an alley, I saved that man's life. I motioned to Marcello. I did not know his name. He was just a man, bleeding in the rain. I used my apron to stop the bleeding, and I put him in a cab. I turned, and I pointed my finger directly at Damien Quell. "This man," I said, "uses a different kind of bleeding. He uses these." I pointed to the image of an envelope on a nearby guest's phone. "He uses a sanitation violation to bleed a diner dry. He uses an illegal rent hike to bleed a waitress out of her home. He uses these envelopes to turn our poverty into his personal weapon." I leaned into the microphone, my eyes locked on Quell's. "He does not just want your money. He wants to own the very idea of hope in this city." You bitch!" Quell screamed. The word was a gunshot in the silent hall, the last thread of his composure, his careful, crafted world, snapped. He turned, his face a grotesque mask of purple rage, to his UTO commander. "Kill the lights, kill all of it, get me out of here now!" The commander, finally given a simple, brutal order he understood, ran to the master electrical panel by the side of the stage. There was a heavy, final thud clank. Lionbridge Hall plunged into absolute, suffocating darkness. The darkness that flooded Lionbridge Hall was total. It was a physical thing, a thick, heavy blanket that smothered all sound for one terrifying second. Then the scream started. Panic. The clatter of overturned chairs, the high, thin shattering of champagne flutes. From the side doors, I heard shouts, "Move, move, secure the exits." It was not the Harbor Safe Unit, it was them. The fake UTO. Quell's last, desperate card, storming in, their heavy boots thudding on the marble. But the crowd did not stampede. A new sound, a deep, deafening rattle of heavy iron, exploded from the main lobby, the dockworker circle. They were pulling the massive, decorative chain gates across the exits, not to trap people, but to funnel them. "Civilians, this way, the longshoremen roared, their voices cutting through the panic. "Walk, we have a clear path." They were creating a safe corridor, shielding the city's elite, their bodies a wall against Quell's men. On the stage, we were in a dark, isolated bubble. "Marcello," I whispered, my hand reaching out. "I am here." His voice was a low anchor, right beside me. "Do not move." My hand, searching, brushed the wall near the podium. I felt a cold, metal panel, the emergency controls. My fingers fumbled over the switches, found a heavy, manual lever, and I slammed it down. A bank of high-wattage emergency lights flickered on, bathing the stage in a warm, sickly yellow glow. The light cut through the dust motes kicked up by the chaos, and it illuminated Damien Quell. He was less than 6 feet away, his tuxedo jacket ripped, his face a grotesque mask of sweat and pure, animalistic hatred. He was not running. He was looking at me. In his hand, he held a thin, sharp steak knife stolen from a banquet table. He lunged, not at Marcello, but at me. "You ruined everything," he shrieked, the sound tearing from his throat. I did not even have time to scream. Marcello moved. He did not fight. He did not draw a weapon. He simply stepped in front of me, a solid, immovable wall. He spread his arms wide, shielding me completely, his back to the blade. He was unarmed. His only weapon was the crowd, the hundreds of phones still lit up in the audience, every single one of them recording. Quell stopped, his arm raised, the knife trembling. He was cornered. He was about to murder an unarmed man in cold blood, on camera, in front of the entire city. In that frozen, terrible second of hesitation, Nova played her final card. The hall's audio system, now completely under her control, clicked to life with a sharp pop. It was not an alarm. It was a voice. Milo Crane's voice. It was not the angry, cornered man from the post office. This was a recording. It was quiet, shaking, and full of a terrible, hollow regret. Or it was never about sanitation. Milo's voice echoed through the silent, stunned hall. It was always a racket. Quell called it a protection initiative. We used the official UDO badges to break anyone who would not pay the Heliotrope Trust. We fabricated violations. We destroyed inventories. Rook's Diner, that was just the latest. We were a protection racket with city badges. The confession played on, clear, undeniable, and devastating. Quell's arm fell to his side. The knife clattered from his limp fingers, bouncing on the stage. Below us, the crowd was not screaming. They were just watching. The UTO men, their path blocked by the dock workers, had stopped, listening to the voice of their own conspiracy. The banker in the front row, the one who had seen the file on his phone, stood up. "You are finished, Damien," he said, his voice cold and final. One by one, his allies, his investors, his bought judges, all turned their backs on him. They formed a silent circle, trapping him on the stage he had built. The main doors to the hall opened. The representative from the Civic Oversight Forum, flanked by 2 harbor-safe agents, walked calmly onto the stage. She did not look at Marcello. She walked straight to Quell, who was staring, vacant, at the knife on the floor. "Mr. Quell," she said, her voice clear and amplified by the still active microphone. "The Brindleport Port Authority is detaining you pending a full investigation into the Heliotrope Trust and the Urban Trade Enforcement Office." She nodded to the agents, who stepped forward and, gently, took his arms. It was over. The Harbor Safe commander, the woman with the calm voice, walked over to Marcello. He was still standing in front of me, his hands still raised in that gesture of surrender. She produced a small, clear plastic tag and snapped it over his wrists, a transparency seal. Then, just as quickly, she produced a small cutter and snapped it off. "Thank you for your cooperation, Mr. Benetti," she announced, loud enough for the recording phones to hear. "You are free to go." It was a brilliant legal move. He had been secured, not arrested. He was a witness, not a suspect. Marcello lowered his arms, he rubbed his wrists, then turned to me, the warm, yellow emergency light softening the exhaustion on his face. He looked at me, his voice so low only I could hear it. "That is the second time you have saved me." The hall was clearing. The agents were taking statements. The crowd was a low murmur of shock and relief. A Harbor Safe agent approached me, her voice kind. "Miss Monroe, your transport is ready. It is in the East Service Tunnel, just as we planned. It is clear." This was it. The exit, the car, the new identity, the clean bank account, the chance to leave Iris Monroe, the waitress, behind forever. To be safe. I turned and looked out the massive floor-to-ceiling windows of Lionbridge Hall. Across the dark water, the first pale, gray-blue light of dawn was beginning to break. I could see the silhouette of the wharf, and on its edge, I could just make out the shape of Rook's Diner. I touched the crisp, white apron tied around my waist. I felt the embroidered thread under my fingers. Not just a girl anymore. I turned back to the agent. "Thank you," I said, my voice steady. "I will not be needing it." I walked over to Marcello, and he was watching me, his face impassive, but his eyes were wide. Holding his breath, he had offered me the escape, and he had no idea what I would do. "I am staying," I said. He took a step, a flicker of relief so profound it almost buckled him, but I held up my hand. "On one condition." He stopped. "Name it." "The Benetti Syndicate. It is over. Your name, your power, it is a poison," I said, "but it can also be the antidote, your legitimate holdings. You will dissolve them tonight, and you will reform them as the Rook's Hearth Fund." "The Rook's Hearth Fund." A shadow of a smile touched his lips. "A community foundation," I said, the words coming faster, stronger. "A chain of community kitchens, safe havens, starting with Rook's. They will provide hot meals, legal aid, and a safe place for the night shift workers, the cabbies, the nurses, the dock workers, the people we were, the people this city is built on." I stepped closer to him. All of it, Marcello. Every dime of your clean money and all of your other arrangements, they are buried forever. You want to be clean. This is how. He did not hesitate for a single second. Agreed. Not just to me, I said, pointing up. Nova was on the balcony, her laptop open, her camera still streaming live. To them. Marcello turned. He walked to the center of the stage, to the civic oversight representative. He asked for a pen and for a piece of paper. Right there, in the golden light of the new dawn, he wrote out a binding pledge. He signed it. The Rook's Hearth Fund, he announced to the camera, to the remaining agents, to the waking city, will be co-directed by Iris Monroe and by Mrs. Rook. My involvement will be as a silent partner and its first donor. The last of the officials and agents finally filtered out, leaving the hall in silence. It was just us, just Marcello and me, alone on the massive stage. The emergency lights were off. The hall was now filled with the soft, clean, golden light of the rising sun, pouring through the shattered skylights. He walked toward me, did not say anything. He just reached out, his hands moving with that same careful, bone-deep reverence I remembered from the boathouse. One hand splayed flat on my back, a solid, warm anchor. The other moved to my head, his fingers gently threading into my hair, tilting my chin up. He pulled me close. I let out a breath I had been holding for my entire life, and I rested my forehead against his chest. I heard it. That steady, solid, reliable heartbeat. I was home. He looked down at me, his dark eyes clear, seeing me. Not the waitress, not the survivor, just me. And I saw him, not the boss, not the ghost, just Marcello. He kissed me. It was not the desperate, hungry kiss of the storm. It was slow, it was deep, it was a vow. It was the seal on a promise we had both just made. His hands were safe, one on my back, one in my hair, holding me like I was the only thing in the world that mattered, my own arms wrapped around his neck, and I held on, not in fear, but in absolute, unshakable strength. This was not a chain. This was not a cage. This was a shield. The massive main doors of Lionbridge Hall were pulled open, letting in the sharp, morning air and the sounds of the city, the rumble of traffic, the call of gulls, the distant booming horn of a cargo ship. Brindleport was waking up, a city that had just torn down its own corrupt glass ceiling, ready, finally to hear the rest of the story, from the girl who was no longer just a waitress. Thank you so much for listening to our story. We would love to know where you are tuning in from, so drop a comment below, share your thoughts, and let's chat. Please, if you enjoyed this, subscribe to our channel, Mafia Boss Stories, and like this video. It makes a huge difference. And if you really loved it, please support us by hitting that hype button so this story can be heard by even more people.